Sergeant Maya Chen crouched behind the twisted remains of what had once been a thriving marketplace on Kepler 442b, her rifle steady despite the chaos erupting around her. The Zephyrian settlement had been evacuated 3 days ago when the hegemony forces landed, but intelligence suggested civilians might still be trapped in the outer districts. Her squad had been tasked with a sweep and clear operation, ensuring no innocent lives remained in the path of the coming orbital bombardment. The acrid smell of burned electronics and alien vegetation filled her nostrils as she moved through the abandoned stalls. Kepler 442b's twin suns cast strange purple shadows through the settlement's bioluminescent canopy, creating an otherworldly maze of light and darkness. Maya had been fighting the hegemony for 3 years now, ever since they'd declared war on the Terran Federation, claiming humanity was a plague species that needed to be contained or eliminated. A soft rustling caught her attention. Maya froze, finger hovering over her trigger. The sound came again, deliberate and careful, from behind an overturned vendor cart selling what appeared to be crystalline fruits. She moved with practiced silence, her enhanced combat suit muffling her footsteps as she approached the source of the disturbance. What she found made her pause. A small Zephyrian child, no more than 8 or 9 in human equivalent years, was huddled behind the cart. The little one had the characteristic iridescent blue skin and large, multifaceted eyes of her species, but where adult Zephyrians stood nearly 7 feet tall, this cub was barely 3 feet high. She wore a torn school uniform, and her delicate, wing-like appendages trembled with fear. Maya lowered her weapon immediately. The universal translator in her helmet processed the child's soft whimpering, revealing words of terror about the metal monsters and pleas for her parents. The soldier's heart clenched. She'd seen too many orphaned children in this war, too many families torn apart by the hegemony's ruthless expansion across the galaxy. "Hey there, little one," Maya whispered, switching to the Zephyrian language she'd learned during her diplomatic training. "I'm not going to hurt you. My name is Maya. What's yours?" The child's massive eyes fixed on her with surprise. Zephyrians could see across multiple light spectrums, and Maya knew the little one was analyzing everything about her, from her heat signature to the electromagnetic field generated by her equipment. After a long moment, the child spoke. "I am Zixara of the Moonweave Cluster," she said, her voice high and melodious despite her fear. "You are human, yes? The metal monsters seek you. They say your kind brings only death." Maya felt her jaw tighten. Hegemony propaganda had painted humanity as monsters, when in reality, humans had been the ones defending smaller species from hegemony aggression. "Some humans bring death, Zixara, but not all of us. I'm here to help get you somewhere safe." The child tilted her head, studying Maya with an intensity that seemed far beyond her years. "You speak our tongue well for a Deathbringer. Perhaps you are different." She paused, then added with surprising cunning, "But how do I know you tell truth? Deception is easy with words." Maya found herself smiling despite the dire circumstances. This little one was sharp. "You're right to be cautious. What would convince you?" Zixara's eyes brightened with what Maya recognized as mischief. "A test. If you are truly good, you will pass. If you are like the metal monsters, you will fail, and I will know to run." "What kind of test?" "A game of wits. I will ask you 3 riddles. Answer correctly, and I will trust you. Fail, and I disappear before you can catch me." The child's wing appendages fluttered with excitement. "Zephyrians are very fast when we need to be." Maya's tactical training screamed that she didn't have time for games. Her squad was expecting her to complete the sweep within the hour, and hegemony patrols could arrive at any moment. But looking at this brave, clever child who was trying to protect herself in the only way she knew how, Maya made a choice. "All right, Zixara, I accept your challenge." The little Zephyrian's entire demeanor changed. Gone was the frightened refugee, replaced by a confident young being who clearly relished intellectual challenges. "First riddle, I am born in darkness but thrive in light. I can be shared endlessly yet never diminished. The metal monsters fear me above all else. What am I?" Maya considered the riddle carefully. Knowledge seemed too simple, though it fit some aspects. Light itself didn't work with the born in darkness clue. Then she thought about the war, about what the hegemony truly feared about humanity and their allies. "Hope," she said finally. "Hope is born in the darkest moments but grows stronger in the light. It can be shared with others without losing any of its power, and the hegemony fears it because hope unites species against their tyranny." Zixara's eyes widened with surprise and delight. Correct, you understand much for a warrior. Second riddle, I am stronger when given away, weaker when hoarded. I can topple empires but cannot be bought. I exist only between minds yet can reshape reality. What am I? This one was trickier. Maya thought about the clues. Something that grew stronger when shared, couldn't be purchased, existed between minds, and could reshape reality. The answer came to her as she watched the child's expectant expression. Trust, Maya said. Trust grows stronger when you give it to others and receive it back. It can't be bought, only earned. It exists in the connections between people, and it's powerful enough to bring down corrupt governments and build new alliances. 2 for 2, Zixara clapped her small hands together, the sound like delicate chimes. You are most clever, human Maya, but the final riddle is the hardest. Ready? Maya nodded, finding herself genuinely enjoying this brilliant child's game, despite their dangerous circumstances. I am the bridge between what was and what could be. I require sacrifice but promise nothing. I am built on foundations of yesterday yet reach toward unknown tomorrows. The wise embrace me while the fearful reject me. What am I? Maya frowned. This riddle was definitely more complex than the first two. She thought about bridges, about sacrifice and promises, about the past and future. The answer felt important, not just for the game, but for something deeper. The sound of distant explosions echoed across the settlement, reminding Maya that time was running short. But as she looked at Zixara, waiting patiently for her answer with the kind of trust that only children could show, Maya realized she already knew the answer. It had been with her every day of this war, every time she chose to help rather than simply fight. Change, she said softly. Change is the bridge between what was and what could be. It requires us to sacrifice our comfort with the familiar, but it promises nothing except the possibility of something better. It's built on everything we've learned from the past while reaching toward an unknown future. Wise people embrace change while the fearful resist it. Zixara stared at her for a long moment, and Maya began to worry she'd gotten it wrong. Then the little Zephyrian smiled, an expression of pure joy that lit up her entire face. Perfect, you understand all three. You are not like the metal monsters at all. She paused, then added with impressive solemnity for someone so young, I trust you, human Maya. I will come with you. As Maya helped the child to her feet, she realized that Zixara had been testing more than just her intelligence. The riddles had been about the fundamental qualities that separated the Federation forces from the hegemony. Hope instead of despair, trust instead of fear, and the courage to change instead of clinging to a brutal status quo. You're very wise for your age, Zixara, Maya said as she checked her equipment and prepared to move. Those weren't just riddles, were they? The little Zephyrian looked up at her with ancient wisdom shining in her young eyes. My grandmother taught me those riddles. She said they would help me know who was truly friend and who was enemy, no matter what uniform they wore or what words they spoke. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. This child hadn't just been playing a game. She'd been conducting a sophisticated test to determine whether Maya was truly someone who could be trusted with her life. And somehow, despite being just a cub, Zixara had managed to peer into Maya's soul and judge her character with startling accuracy. As they prepared to leave the abandoned marketplace, Maya couldn't help but wonder if perhaps she wasn't the one doing the protecting here. Maybe, just maybe, this remarkable little being was about to teach her something far more valuable than any military training ever could. Moving through the settlement with Zixara proved to be more challenging than Maya had anticipated. The little Zephyrian was incredibly curious about everything, especially Maya's equipment and tactics. As they crept through the shadows of collapsed buildings, avoiding the systematic search patterns of hegemony drones overhead, Zixara whispered a constant stream of questions. Why do you move in that pattern? She asked as Maya led them in a zigzag route between cover points. Would it not be faster to go straight? Maya paused behind a fountain that had once been beautiful but now lay cracked and dry. Straight lines are predictable. If someone's watching, they can guess where you're going next. Random patterns keep you alive. Ah, Zixara nodded sagely. Like the moonweave bird when the stormcats hunt, but your pattern is not truly random, is it? You are avoiding the places where metal can see through the air. Maya looked at her with surprise. The child was right. Her route had been designed to avoid the electromagnetic detection sweeps of the hegemony sensors, something that should have been far beyond a civilian's knowledge, especially a child's. How did you know that? Zixara's wing appendages fluttered with what Maya was learning to recognize as pride. My parent clutch were engineers before the metal monsters came. I helped them build the sanctuary networks that hide our people. I know how the seeing machines work. This information stopped Maya cold. The sanctuary networks were sophisticated hidden installations that had kept Zephyrian resistance cells alive for months despite hegemony occupation. If this child had been involved in their construction, she possessed technical knowledge that could be invaluable to the Federation's war effort. Zixara, I need to ask you something important. Do you remember the locations of any sanctuary networks that haven't been discovered? The child's eyes narrowed with suspicion that seemed far too mature for her years. Why do you wish to know? Will you tell your metal flying machines to break them? No, little one. We want to protect them. My people are fighting the same enemy as yours. If we know where your people are hiding, we can make sure our operations don't accidentally put them in danger. Zixara studied Maya's face for a long moment, her multifaceted eyes catching and analyzing microexpressions that most humans would miss entirely. Finally, she seemed to reach a decision. I will show you, she said. But first, another test. This one is not riddles, this one is trust. Before Maya could ask what she meant, Zixara suddenly bolted from their hiding place, running with astonishing speed toward what appeared to be a hegemony patrol route. Maya's heart leaped into her throat as she saw the small figure racing directly into danger. Every instinct screamed at Maya to stay hidden. Revealing herself to save one child could compromise the entire mission and cost dozens of other lives. It was a calculation any military professional would make. One life weighed against many. The logical choice was clear. Maya sprinted after Zixara without hesitation. The hegemony patrol consisted of 3 Kralek soldiers, 8-foot-tall insected beings with razor-sharp claws and energy weapons integrated into their carapaces. They wore the distinctive black armor of hegemony shock troops, and their compound eyes were already tracking toward the small figure racing toward them. Maya's enhanced combat suit kicked into overdrive, flooding her system with adrenaline boosters and tactical stimulants. Time seemed to slow as her rifle came up, and she calculated firing solutions on the move. The Kraleks were fast, but they hadn't expected human intervention. Her first shot took the lead soldier in the center mass, the plasma round punching through even their reinforced armor. The second Kralek spun toward her, energy weapon charging, but Maya was already diving behind cover as return fire sizzled through the air where she'd been standing. Zixara had disappeared behind a pile of rubble, but Maya could hear the child's rapid breathing. She was alive, which meant Maya still had a chance to get them both out of this mess. The remaining Kraleks were coordinating their attack, using their natural telepathic link to flank Maya's position. She could hear their chittering communication and the scrape of claws on stone as they moved to surround her. That's when Zixara did something unexpected. The little Zephyrian suddenly appeared on top of the rubble pile, holding what looked like a simple crystalline rock. But as she threw it toward the Kraleks, Maya realized it wasn't just any rock. The crystal exploded in a brilliant flash of light across multiple spectra, temporarily blinding the insectoid soldiers whose compound eyes were sensitive to electromagnetic radiation. Maya seized the opportunity, emerging from cover to finish the engagement with precise shots that dropped both remaining enemies. In the sudden silence that followed, Maya stared at Zixara in amazement. That was a flashbang crystal. Where did you learn to use those? My parent clutch taught me, Zixara said simply, climbing down from her perch. They said knowledge of defense was as important as knowledge of building. She paused, then fixed Maya with that unsettling adult stare. You passed the test, human Maya. What test? The test of choosing. Zixara approached slowly, her large eyes reflecting serious thoughts. I ran toward danger to see what you would do. Would you stay safe and let me face the metal monsters alone, or would you risk yourself for someone you barely know? Maya felt a chill of realization. You deliberately put yourself in danger to test my character. Yes, the child said matter-of-factly. If you had chosen your safety over mine, I would have known you were not truly different from the metal monsters. They also choose themselves first, always. The simple honesty of the statement hit Maya harder than any enemy weapon ever had. This little being had risked her life on the gamble that Maya would choose to save her, all to determine whether humans could truly be trusted. The courage and intelligence required for such a test was staggering. That was incredibly brave, Maya said softly, and incredibly dangerous. War is dangerous, Zixara replied with a shrug that seemed far too casual for someone discussing life-and-death decisions. But choosing the wrong allies is more dangerous than choosing the right ones. She smiled then, that brilliant expression that transformed her entire face. You chose correctly, human Maya. Now I will show you the sanctuaries. As they resumed their journey through the settlement, Maya found herself seeing the mission in an entirely new light. She thought she was rescuing a helpless child, but Zixara was proving to be anything but helpless. The little Zephyrian was a survivor with skills, knowledge, and a sharp intelligence that had already saved both their lives. More importantly, Maya was beginning to understand that this wasn't just about evacuation anymore. Zixara represented something the Federation desperately needed. Proof that their alliance with the Zephyrians was built on mutual trust and respect rather than simple military convenience. This child had tested Maya not just as an individual, but as a representative of humanity itself. And somehow, miraculously, Maya had passed. The sound of approaching hegemony reinforcements echoed across the settlement. Maya checked her equipment and began calculating new routes to the extraction point. But as she did, she noticed Zixara watching her with that same analytical expression the child had worn during their first meeting. Another test, Maya asked. Always, Zixara replied cheerfully. But this time we test together. The metal monsters think they are the hunters. Time to show them they are wrong. Maya grinned fiercely. This remarkable little being wasn't just going to survive the war. She was going to help win it. And Maya was beginning to suspect that the student-teacher relationship between them might not be as one-sided as she'd originally assumed. The sanctuary that Zixara led Maya to was hidden beneath what appeared to be an ordinary residential district. The entrance was so cleverly concealed that Maya would have walked past it a dozen times without noticing. Only when the little Zephyrian pressed her palm against a seemingly random stone did a section of the ground silently slide away, revealing a tunnel lined with the same bioluminescent material that formed the settlement's canopy. Your parent clutch were brilliant engineers, Maya whispered as they descended into the hidden network. The tunnel was perfectly designed for both concealment and defense, with multiple choke points and what appeared to be automated defensive systems built into the walls. They still are, Zixara corrected gently. The metal monsters have not caught them yet. They hide in the deep sanctuaries, building new defenses every day. Her voice carried a note of fierce pride. My people do not surrender easily. The tunnel opened into a vast underground chamber that took Maya's breath away. Dozens of Zephyrian families had taken shelter here, creating a hidden city complete with living quarters, workshops, and what appeared to be sophisticated communication equipment. Children played quietly in designated areas, while adults worked on projects that looked far more advanced than anything Maya had expected to find in a refugee camp. An elderly Zephyrian approached them, her iridescent skin bearing the silver patterns that indicated great age and wisdom among her people. Her multifaceted eyes studied Maya with sharp intelligence before focusing on Zixara. Little star, the elder said in flawless English, you should not have brought a stranger here without permission, no matter how friendly she appears. Grandmother Velika, Zixara replied formally, I tested her with the ancient riddles and she answered truly. I tested her with the choice of sacrifice and she chose correctly. This human can be trusted. Maya felt her breath catch. The games and tests hadn't been just Zixara's idea. They were part of an established system, ancient traditions for determining trustworthiness. She'd been evaluated by methods that had probably been used for generations. Velika's eyes shifted back to Maya. You answered the riddles of essence correctly. Hope, trust, and change, Maya said quietly, though I suspect there were deeper meanings I didn't fully grasp. Perhaps, the elder said with a slight smile, and you chose to risk yourself for our cub when she placed herself in danger. I couldn't do anything else, Maya admitted. She was in trouble, that was all that mattered. Interesting, Velika gestured for them to follow her deeper into the sanctuary. Tell me, human soldier, what do you know of the deep bonds? Maya shook her head. I've never heard that term. The deep bonds are the connections that transcend species, politics, and circumstance. They form when beings recognize fundamental kinship in each other's souls. The elder led them to a workshop where several Zephyrians were working on what appeared to be advanced weaponry. Your Federation speaks of alliances and mutual benefit, but the deep bonds speak of something more, family chosen by spirit rather than birth. As Maya watched the activity around her, she began to understand what she was really seeing. These weren't just refugees hiding from the enemy. They were active resistance fighters, using their sanctuary as a base for sophisticated operations against the hegemony. The weapons being constructed were clearly designed to counter specific hegemony technologies, and the communication arrays were undoubtedly coordinating with resistance cells across the planet. "You're not just surviving down here," Maya said with growing amazement. "You're fighting back." "Of course," Zixara piped up. "Did you think we would simply hide and hope the metal monsters would leave? That is not the Zephyrian way." Velika nodded approvingly. "Our little star understands the deeper lessons. Survival without resistance is merely a slower form of death, but resistance without wisdom is suicide." She turned to Maya. "Your people fight with great courage above ground. We fight with great cunning below ground. Perhaps it is time our efforts were coordinated." Maya felt her pulse quicken. This was beyond anything her mission parameters had anticipated. The Federation had assumed the Zephyrian resistance was scattered and poorly organized. Instead, she discovered a sophisticated underground network with capabilities that could completely change the strategic balance on Kepler 442b. "My superiors would be very interested in establishing formal communication with your resistance network," Maya said carefully. "But I should warn you that the hegemony is planning orbital bombardment of this entire region. We need to evacuate everyone within the next few hours." The elder's expression didn't change. "We know about the bombardment. We've been monitoring their fleet communications for days." "Then why haven't you evacuated?" "Because," Zixara said with that unsettling mature wisdom, "sometimes the best time to strike your enemy is when they think they've already won." Velika smiled proudly at the child. "Our little star grasps tactical thinking remarkably well for one so young. Yes, human Maya, we know about the bombardment, and we know about the hegemony command ship that will drop to low orbit to coordinate the attack. A ship that will be extremely vulnerable during the 15 minutes it takes to calibrate the orbital weapons." Maya stared at them in shock. "You're planning to attack a capital ship with what?" "With knowledge," the elder said simply. "We know its shield frequencies, its reactor signatures, its communication protocols. We've been studying hegemony technology for months, learning their weaknesses." She gestured toward the weapons being constructed. "These are not mere rifles, human soldier. They are precision instruments designed to exploit very specific vulnerabilities. But even if you could damage a capital ship, you'd never be able to destroy it completely. And once you reveal your location by attacking, the entire hegemony fleet will focus their bombardment on this sanctuary." "True," Velika agreed calmly. "Unless the attack comes from multiple locations simultaneously, coordinated with Federation forces above ground, and timed to coincide with the moment when the command ship's defenses are reconfiguring for bombardment protocols." Maya felt her mind racing through the implications. "You're talking about a coordinated strike that would require precise timing, detailed intelligence, and perfect execution." "Yes," Zixara said cheerfully, "it will be most difficult, but also most effective." She tilted her head with curiosity. "Will your people be clever enough to help us, or must we do this ourselves?" Maya looked at the child who had been testing her all day, and suddenly understood the true scope of what had been happening. Every riddle, every challenge, every test hadn't just been about determining whether Maya could be trusted. They'd been about determining whether humanity as a species had the wisdom, courage, and flexibility to be true partners rather than mere allies. "I need to contact my command immediately," Maya said. "This changes everything." "Indeed it does," Velika said with satisfaction. "The question is whether your commanders will have the wisdom to recognize opportunity when it presents itself." As Maya activated her long-range communicator, she caught Zixara watching her with that analytical expression again. "Another test?" she asked. "The most important one," the little Zephyrian replied seriously. "This test is not just for you, human Maya. This test is for your entire species. Will you fight alongside us as equals, or will you try to take command because you think your way is better?" Maya paused in her communication preparations, struck by the profound nature of the question. The answer would determine not just the success of their immediate mission, but the future of human-Zephyrian relations, and possibly the outcome of the entire war. "We fight as equals," she said firmly. "Your sanctuary, your plan, your command, we provide support and coordination, not orders." Zixara's smile was like the rising of a star. "Perfect answer, human Maya. I think your species will pass this test too." As Maya began transmitting the sanctuary's coordinates and strategic intelligence to Federation Command, she realized that the little cub hadn't just been trying to outsmart a soldier. She'd been evaluating an entire civilization's worthiness as allies. And somehow, against all odds, humanity had managed to measure up to the standards of this remarkable little being. The Federation response to Maya's intelligence report was swift and decisive. Within 2 hours, every available ship in the system had repositioned for coordinated assault, and Special Forces teams were being deployed to support the Zephyrian resistance cells. But as Maya watched the preparations unfold, she noticed that Zixara seemed increasingly thoughtful, almost melancholy. "What's troubling you, little one?" Maya asked as they helped prepare the sanctuary's weapons for the assault. "I am thinking about tests and what they truly measure," Zixara replied, her small hands working with surprising skill to calibrate a targeting array. "All day I have tested you, and you have passed every challenge, but I begin to wonder if perhaps I have been testing the wrong things." Maya set down the equipment she'd been organizing and gave the child her full attention. "What do you mean?" "The riddles tested your wisdom, the danger test proved your courage, the sanctuary revealed your respect for our independence." Zixara paused in her work, her multifaceted eyes reflecting deep thoughts. "But none of these tests measured the most important thing. Which is whether you will still be our friend when the war is over." The simple question hit Maya like a physical blow. In all the excitement of discovering the resistance network and planning the coordinated assault, she hadn't considered the longer-term implications. Wars ended, soldiers went home, and political alliances shifted with changing circumstances. What would happen to the bonds being forged today when the immediate threat was gone? "That's a very wise concern," Maya said slowly. "What kind of test could measure something like that?" "I do not know," Zixara admitted with unusual uncertainty. "How do you test for something that has not happened yet? How do you measure a heart's truth across time and distance?" Before Maya could respond, Grandmother Velika approached with news that made the philosophical discussion suddenly urgent. "The hegemony command ship has begun its descent. We have perhaps an hour before the bombardment begins." Maya nodded grimly and activated her communicator to coordinate with the Federation strike teams. But as she spoke with her commanders, she noticed Zixara listening intently to every word, still wearing that expression of deep contemplation. The plan that unfolded was elegantly complex. Federation forces would create diversionary attacks across the system, drawing hegemony attention away from Kepler 442b at the critical moment. Simultaneously, resistance cells would emerge from hidden sanctuaries across the planet, targeting the command ship's sensor arrays with weapons specifically designed to exploit their electromagnetic vulnerabilities. The timing had to be perfect, with all attacks beginning within a 30-second window to prevent the enemy from adapting their defenses. As the countdown began, Maya found herself assigned to one of the strike teams emerging from the sanctuary. Her combat experience would be valuable in coordinating the attack, but she realized this meant being separated from Zixara during the most dangerous phase of the operation. "I want to come with you," the little Zephyrian said as Maya checked her equipment one final time. "Absolutely not. This is going to be extremely dangerous, and you're needed here to help coordinate communications between the different resistance cells." "But what if something happens to you?" Zixara's voice was small and vulnerable, revealing the frightened child beneath the remarkable intelligence. "What if I never see you again?" Maya knelt down to meet the child's eyes. "Then you'll remember that we had today. And you'll know that somewhere in the galaxy there are humans who will always consider you family, no matter what politics or politicians might say." "Is that a promise?" "That's a promise." Zixara studied her face with that familiar analytical intensity, but this time Maya sensed the child was looking for something different. Not wisdom or courage or tactical ability, but simple sincerity. "I have one final test," Zixara said quietly. "But this one is not for now, this one is for later." "What kind of test?" The little Zephyrian reached into her school uniform and pulled out a small crystalline object, no bigger than Maya's thumb. It appeared to be carved from the same bioluminescent material as the sanctuary walls, but it pulsed with a soft, steady light that seemed to respond to Zixara's touch. "This is a memory crystal," she explained. "It contains recordings of our time together today and a message I have prepared for you, but it will only activate if—" She paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. "It will only activate if you return to this place when the war is over, alone, not as a soldier, but as yourself." Maya accepted the crystal, feeling its warmth pulse against her palm. "What happens if I don't return?" "Then the crystal remains dark, and we both learn something sad about the nature of promises made during wartime." Zixara's expression was serious beyond her years. "But if you do return, if you choose to come back to this place when duty no longer requires it, then the crystal will show you something special, and we will both know that some connections transcend even the end of wars." The weight of the small object seemed enormous in Maya's hand. This wasn't just a test of her character or her species' reliability. This was a test of whether the bond between them was real enough to survive peace. "I'll return," Maya said firmly. "When this war is over, I'll come back, that's a promise too." "I hope so," Zixara whispered, "because I think you are the first human I have ever loved like family." Before Maya could respond, the alarm signals began. The hegemony command ship had reached optimal bombardment position, and all resistance cells were moving to attack positions. It was time for the most audacious military operation in the history of the Human-Zephyrian Alliance. As Maya moved toward her assigned position, she caught one last glimpse of Zixara coordinating communications with other resistance cells. The little being who had spent the day testing Maya's worthiness was now putting her complete trust in the results of those tests, betting her life and the lives of everyone she cared about on the belief that humans and Zephyrians could truly fight as one. The crystal pulsed warmly in Maya's equipment pouch, a reminder that some tests extended far beyond the immediate battlefield. Win or lose, survive or die, the most important challenge was still waiting in an uncertain future when the guns fell silent and soldiers became people again. Maya gripped her rifle tighter and focused on the mission ahead. Today she would help prove that humans could be trusted as allies in war. But someday, if she lived long enough, she would face an even more important test, proving that humans could be trusted as friends in peace. The attack began with precision that would have made any military academy instructor proud. Across the planet, resistance cells emerged from their sanctuaries in perfect synchronization, their specialized weapons striking the command ship's sensor arrays with devastating accuracy. Simultaneously, Federation forces engaged hegemony fleets throughout the system, creating the exact level of distraction needed to prevent reinforcement of the orbiting vessel. Maya's team struck their assigned target with textbook efficiency, but as she fought, her thoughts kept drifting to a small crystal and the remarkable child who had entrusted her with a test that would measure not just her individual worth, but the true depth of humanity's capacity for lasting friendship. 3 years later, Maya Chen stood at the edge of what had once been the Zephyrian settlement on Kepler 442b, watching the twin suns set through a canopy that had grown back even more beautiful than before. The war had ended 8 months ago with the complete collapse of the hegemony following a cascade of species rebellions across their territory. The galaxy was at peace for the first time in a generation. Maya was no longer Sergeant Chen. Her discharge papers identified her as Dr. Maya Chen, xenolinguist and cultural attaché, but those titles felt less important than the simple fact that she was here because she had chosen to be. No orders, no mission parameters, no military objectives, just a promise made to a remarkable child during the darkest hours of war. The settlement had been rebuilt with a fascinating blend of traditional Zephyrian architecture and Federation engineering techniques. The bioluminescent structures were more vibrant than ever, but they now incorporated human-designed power distribution systems that made the entire community more resilient. It was a perfect symbol of the deep cooperation that had emerged from the ashes of conflict. Maya made her way through the familiar streets, noting how much had changed and how much had stayed the same. The marketplace where she'd first encountered Zixara was now a memorial garden dedicated to all the civilians lost during the occupation. But children still played among the crystal fruit vendors, their laughter a testament to the resilience of life. She found her destination without difficulty, The sanctuary entrance was no longer hidden, having been converted into a cultural center where Zephyrian and human students studied together. The underground chambers that had once been a secret military base were now classrooms, workshops, and artistic studios where the two species collaborated on projects that would have been unimaginable during wartime. Maya descended the familiar tunnels, her heart pounding with an anticipation she hadn't expected. 3 years was a long time in the life of a child. Would Zixara even remember her? Would the promise of a scared soldier mean anything to a young being who had undoubtedly moved on with her life? The central chamber had been transformed into a library and research center. Zephyrian and human scholars worked side by side, translating texts, comparing scientific theories, and building the kind of intellectual bridges that would hopefully prevent future conflicts. Maya scanned the busy space, looking for any sign of the little girl who had changed her understanding of what it meant to be human. "You came back." Maya turned to find herself facing a young Zephyrian who was unmistakably Zixara, but transformed by 3 years of growth. She was taller now, approaching adolescence by Zephyrian standards, and her wing appendages had developed the iridescent patterns that indicated emerging adulthood. But her eyes were the same, multifaceted and brilliant with intelligence. "I promised I would," Maya said simply, "though I'll admit I wasn't sure you'd remember me." Zixara's smile was radiant. "How could I forget my first human friend? Besides," she added with familiar mischief, "I have been waiting to see if you would pass the final test." Maya reached into her pocket and pulled out the memory crystal, which had remained dark throughout the journey to Kepler 442b. The moment it touched Zixara's palm, it blazed to life with warm, golden light. "Congratulations," Zixara said with genuine joy. "You have passed every test I could devise. You have proven that humans can be wise, brave, respectful, and most importantly, true to their promises even when no one is watching." The crystal projected a holographic display that showed scenes from their time together during the war. Maya watched herself answering riddles, running toward danger to save a child, and making promises in the depths of an underground sanctuary. But mixed in with the war memories were other scenes. Zixara studying human language and culture, working on scientific projects with human researchers, and talking to camera about her hopes for the future. "You prepared a message," Maya said, remembering the crystal's original purpose. "Several messages, actually, different ones depending on whether you returned and when." Zixara's expression grew serious. "Would you like to see the one I recorded for this moment?" Maya nodded, and the hologram shifted to show a younger Zixara sitting in what appeared to be her family's home. The recorded child began to speak. "If you are seeing this, human Maya, it means you have kept your promise and returned to our world when the war was over. This proves that the connection between us was real, not just something born from shared danger. I want you to know that you changed how I think about your species. Before I met you, I knew humans were brave fighters, but you taught me that humans could also be wise friends. I also want you to know that your visit has started something wonderful. Because one human proved trustworthy, other Zephyrians became willing to trust other humans. The sanctuary networks that once hid from Federation forces now work with them. The resistance cells that once fought alone now train alongside human special forces. The children who once feared your species now study your languages and dream of visiting your worlds. One soldier keeping her promise to one child has helped build bridges that will last for generations. This is the real power of the deep bonds that my grandmother spoke of. They grow beyond the original connection, creating new relationships and possibilities that no one could have imagined. So thank you, Maya Chen, for being exactly the kind of human we hoped you would be. Thank you for proving that some things matter more than duty, and some connections are stronger than distance or time. And thank you for showing me that the best tests are not the ones that prove someone's worth, but the ones that prove someone's heart. The hologram faded, leaving Maya and the grown Zixara standing in comfortable silence. Finally, Maya spoke. "You've become quite the philosopher." "I learned from the best teacher," Zixara replied with a grin. "A human soldier who was wise enough to let herself be tested by a child." "What are you doing now? I assume you're not still testing random humans." "Actually, I am." Zixara gestured toward the busy research center around them. "But now I test them as colleagues and friends rather than as potential threats. I work with Federation xenopsychologists to develop better communication protocols between species. We use modified versions of the ancient riddles to help beings understand each other's fundamental values. Maya felt a surge of pride and amazement. The little girl who had tested her with riddles and challenges had grown up to become exactly what the galaxy needed. A bridge builder who understood that trust had to be earned and maintained through wisdom rather than force. "I have something for you too," Maya said, reaching into her other pocket. She pulled out a small device that looked like a human-made version of the memory crystal. "This contains contact information for every human who worked with Zephyrian resistance cells during the war. Veterans who still remember what your people taught them about courage and cunning, people who would be honored to call you friend." Zixara accepted the device with reverence, a network of deep bonds spanning the galaxy. The beginning of one, anyway. It turns out that testing each other's worthiness is a human tradition, too. We just call it making friends the hard way. They stood together in the transformed sanctuary, surrounded by the fruits of the partnership their unlikely meeting had helped create. Maya realized that Zixara had been right about one thing. The most important tests were the ones that revealed hearts rather than minds, character rather than competence. "I have one more question," Maya said. "After all the tests and challenges and proving ourselves to each other, what happens now?" Zixara's eyes sparkled with familiar mischief. "Now we stop testing and start trusting. Now we build something together that neither humans nor Zephyrians could create alone." She paused, then added with the wisdom that had made her remarkable even as a child. "Now we discover what the galaxy looks like when species choose to be family instead of just allies." As they walked together through the underground chambers that had once hidden desperate resistance fighters and now housed hopeful scholars, Maya reflected on the strange journey that had brought them to this moment. A cub had tried to outsmart a soldier, testing her worthiness with riddles and challenges and impossible choices. But in the end, the child had taught the soldier something far more valuable than any military training: that the bonds between individuals could reshape the relationships between civilizations, and that sometimes the most important victories were won not on battlefields, but in the simple act of keeping a promise made to a friend. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, but Maya had learned that the greatest wonder of all was discovering that trust, once earned and carefully tended, could grow into something strong enough to bridge any distance between hearts, minds, or stars. Outside, Kepler 442b's twin suns set in a blaze of purple and gold, illuminating a world where two species had learned to call each other family. And in the depths of a converted sanctuary, a human and a Zephyrian planned new tests, new challenges, and new bridges that would help other species discover the same miraculous truth. The war was over. The real work of building peace had just begun, and it would start as the best things always did, with one being choosing to trust another, one promise at a time.